Welcome to this edition of the Operation Greatness Action Pod. This is Action Pod number 48, and we have an interesting title today. I want you to notice how you feel this title. What comes to mind for you? What could it mean? How do you think this relates to you? Think about all these things when you consider this title. This is Exit the Mass Herd of Wrecked People. This came up as this kind of like wrote itself. I was really interested in these words that came out because, I mean, consciously, well, think about this yourself. Think about this for you. I think that my behavior is of my own design, and yet it's been proven. I mean, you can relate to that yourself, right? You think that you choose your actions yourself consciously, right? It's been proven that fully 93 to 97% of our behavior is not our own. It's not of our own choice. It's not our own design. It's not even what serves and supports us. It's programmed. It's our unconscious mind that was programmed for us to act a certain way. I mean, we call this the matrix, and our lives are about freeing the matrix. We're doing this together through freeingthematrix.com, our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. You for sure want to be there. In fact, to talk about every point that I'm making here that we are considering together here through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So, like that point, pause and reflect on that. Share your thoughts about that in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, as well as on all of your social media platforms, because we're exposing this. We're breaking free from the matrix, and actually, we are so much greater. Each one of us is so much greater than the Matrix ever was. So we're freeing the Matrix from our mind. And we're talking about that. I mean, I hope you're part of our freeingthematrix.com mastermind already, and you've already seen that masterclass that I gave there, which is called Freeing the Matrix from Your Mind. You got that right away when you joined us in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind because you'll see in that masterclass, if you haven't already gone through that and transformed by becoming so much bigger than the matrix ever was, right there in that masterclass, Freeing the Matrix from Your Mind. Well, okay, so let's understand how our lives, our minds work. I mean, well, let's go back a minute first before we do that. So, like, think about that. Pause and reflect on that. Really, he's saying 93 to 97% of my behavior was not by my conscious choice. It was programmed from my environment. How could that be true? How could I have been totally oblivious to all of the programming out there? Do I accept that? And then you might want to even research that. Is that true that 93 to 97% of my behavior is programmed and not by conscious choice? And I mean, when you join us in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, and then you go to the classes page or tab, you will see Parasite Cleansed being one of the classes, which is an optional class. And yet, I believe this is required of every one of us to become parasite cleansed. That's where we have purged all of that old non-supportive programming. I mean, look at the average person. Like, where was I reading about that? I don't know. I guess it was, oh, it was in, okay. I added a coach to my team, and this is his specialty. He's, we're using his questionnaire that he created. I'm going through it myself, and that's been the second greatest thing that I've ever done, in fact. It's like just blowing me away how much my own behavior, and I've been a coach since 1998, and I've taught Think and Grow Rich at the master's level since 2003, and the Master Key System at the master's level since 2002 before that. And I've been studying this stuff. I mean, I began using subliminal programming back in 1990 or 91 myself. And so I know, and the greatest thing that I've ever done was working with an enlightened master. It's called Advaita Vedanta. You can think of it as approximating like the finger pointing in the direction of that which is something beyond the mind. You can think of it as non-duality, transcending the limitations of the gross world, because it's the astral world, the level of thinking and growing rich. The astral is what creates the gross, the physical world, and yet the causal is what creates the astral, which creates the gross. So the more refined you take yourself, the more aware you become, the more high conscious you are, the more aware of your behavior. Anyway, I mean, that's the greatest thing that I've ever done, having weekly satsang meetings almost weekly with an enlightened master since like September or October of 1999. We've been doing a lot of work together, and that's been the greatest thing that I've ever done. Becoming parasite cleansed myself, and I'm still going through that process myself. That's been the second greatest thing I've done. I have a feeling that you're not connected with an enlightened guru yourself, a master who has transcended duality and lives in God. And see, I mean, that's part of the programming, the parasite cleansing that we all need to do is, I mean, I love this. It's been called the unholy trinity of science, religion, and government as the unholy trinity because they're the ones, the parasites who are feeding off of our power and keeping us dumb, scared, broke, in scarcity, lack, consciousness, weak, fighting each other, divided, disconnected, in despair. That's the programming. That's what the parasites had done to keep us down, to keep us from realizing that we have all the power. And our purpose is to focus our power like the sunlight feels warm on my arm, and yet it's not damaging to me, except when we focus the light of the sun to a single beam of light. I think it can incinerate steel, especially when it's concentrated, right? I mean, that's how powerful you are, because where you give your attention is where you are giving your power, is how you are creating your life, is how we are creating our world. And your power is beyond measure. And yet you were not taught this. This should be mandatory in every school system. I mean, like I mentioned, I've taught Think and Grow Rich at the master's level since 2003. And Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich that Andrew Carnegie, whom he describes as his mentor, and Napoleon Hill says that Andrew Carnegie, then the richest man in the world, invited him to his mansion where Napoleon Hill tells us that Andrew Carnegie taught him everything that he knew about making money over 2.5 days. And that became, and then actually Napoleon Hill says that Andrew Carnegie commissioned him to go out there and interview the 500, well, the richest people in the world, and to spend 20 years doing this and compiling what he calls the success philosophy. These are the 13 things that the richest in the world do that the mostly unsuccessful masses know nothing about and certainly do not use those 13 steps to riches themselves. And that became Think and Grow Rich. And so that's one of, well, it's called the Success Bible. More people have become wealthy with that than anything else in history, including more than 1 million millionaires. I mean, so anyway, the information is out there, but they've been keeping it from us. And in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill tells us that Andrew Carnegie, upon reading the transcript for the book, told him that this should be mandatory before a student can graduate from high school. They must demonstrate a mastery of these 13 steps to riches. I mean, really hear that, because it's called the education system, and yet because we were so distracted, divided, disconnected, manipulated by the unholy trinity, by the parasites, they're really predators feeding off of us and farming us. They think of us as the way we think of cattle on a farm. I mean, I've done 3 podcasts on that. It's called Raising Humans, part one, two, and three. And then also Becoming Unlimited. I want to steer you to hearing that one because your power is beyond measure. There's no limit to the amount of good you are here to contribute meaningfully to others. That's what your whole life is about. And the more you are giving, the more you are contributing to being of greater service, the more you're dedicating your life and being a source of making a difference, major contribution. That is your level of success, happiness, joy, fulfillment, well-being, peace of mind, prosperity, meaning, impact, contribution to the world. The more of an impact you're having, the more your life is that gift, which is your destiny. You are God's gift to the world, after all. The more you're contributing meaningfully to others, the more fulfilled you are, the more you believe in yourself, the more you know you matter. You matter more than you will ever comprehend because your power is far greater than you can ever even imagine or know. And we're focusing our power together and living, fulfilling, honoring, achieving our divine design, duty, destiny, dharma. All together, we're doing this. We're serving and supporting each other in having the full impact our lives are meant to be through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. And if you're watching this video, I'm creating this as a video. And if you're watching this, I have up on the screen the logo for today's program, Exit the Mass Herd of Wrecked People. And well, I mean, we're doing this together. We're talking about it together through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. And when you've given yourself the Operation Greatness chapter, when you're leading your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community, then you're getting the videos for all of our podcasts. And that's so much more impactful because then you can see me talking, you can get the nuances of what I'm saying through the body language, the nonverbal communication, and you can also see when I'm sharing my screen right now, and that's where we have the logo right there. And by the way, before I forget about it, so today's action pod number 48 is Exit the Mass Herd of Wrecked People, and the reminder that you are meant for so much more than being sick, weak, broke, poisoned. You are born to thrive, and actually, you are God's gift to the world, so you are here to lead, inspire, transform, and liberate. LITL, every one of your online friends doing a little more today in being of greater service to more people, like everyone you are blessed to have connected with you. So do that now. right from the beginning. I mean, go back to the beginning and pause and reflect on each of the points that I've been making here and relate them to your life. And I mean, honestly ask yourself, wow, 93 to 97% of my behavior is not my own. It was carefully programmed or manipulated to keep me down. That's really a compelling, striking statement, assessment of the world today. Is that true that government and organized religion and science has been keeping people in poverty and poisoning them because they're easier to control? Is that true? Well, I don't like the sound of that, and yet, how much weaker have every one of us become? Has every one of us become since March of 2020 is when what I call Fraud 1.0 came to America, at least? How much more suffering has every one of us endured since then? How much more, well, the poison, I mean, the science, saying trust the science, and then they later, by all of us demanding to know the truth, they've, said, well, there's nothing really scientific and we don't even know the long-term consequences of these things. I mean, this was the attempted totalitarian takeover. And do you think that just ended when we said, no, we do not agree? And I mean, how many people, what about, whatever it was, the billions of people who subjected themselves to this programming, the narrative, and the fraud? And anyway, I mean, so what I'm saying is that Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich that Andrew Carnegie told him that the knowledge of how to become as happy and successful and wealthy as you want must be taught in our high schools, and that students must demonstrate a mastery over the way they are creating everything in their lives before they are allowed to graduate from high school. I mean, that's obvious, right? Because think about this, like, how did we create our school system? I mean, think of like the one-room schoolhouses back in the small villages where we used to live. I don't know if that was in the early 1900s, maybe, or maybe it was earlier than that. And, like, think of, like, let's say there's 100 houses that form a community or village, tribe, really, and they are working the fields and they're raising the animals and raising the children. And, then there's a pastor and there's a bar and a bar owner. And then there's, like a horseshoe person. What do they call them? I don't remember anymore. Like they're pounding the metal into the horseshoes, and they're making the carriages, and they're making, then there's like the lumber mill, and then there's, everybody has their trade to support the community, right? And then they decided, hey, wait a minute, we need somebody to teach our children the ways of our people, so let's all pool our money like 100 families and we'll hire a teacher, and then our children can go instead of, well, I mean, I think the mom used to be the one to teach the children. I don't know why we moved away from that, because who's a better teacher than the mom of the children who's raising the children? And so maybe that was part of the programming too. I mean, I know that J.D. Rockefeller, he organized or he subverted the whole education system because he wanted, well, I mean, let's be honest. We have to be honest about all of this because this is our lives here and this is our children here. This is our future. So we have to talk openly about this. And unfortunately, we have to talk outside of the normal channels because those channels were subverted by, let's call it, well, it's the parasites. We have to call it what it is. It's the parasites. the predators, feeding off of our fear, our hatred, our division, our despair. I mean, The Matrix, it was a movie, and yet that scene where you see all of the humans having their life force sucked by the predators, the parasites, that is how it is. That was how we had allowed ourselves, our lives, and our world to become, where we are the farm, we're the prey on the farm, and they're feeding off of us. We must demand an end to that. We must stop that system, dismantle it, and that happens only by us thriving ourselves, right? You know that, right? I mean, that's obvious. We are so much greater than any of us can ever recognize. That is what needs to be taught in our school system, and yet it was J.D. Rockefeller, and that he's responsible for big pharma, and these small numbers of families that decided that they had the right to all of the resources of the world, all of the money, and they organized and they pitted people against each other, like providing arms to both sides, like the Rothschild banking cartel. And anyway, I mean, so J.D. Rockefeller, he subverted the whole education system by making it mandatory public school education, and it became about indoctrination instead of education even way back then, because he wanted a workforce for the factories, for the industrialists. He didn't want people thinking for themselves. Already back then, he wanted people to go along with their plans, the narrative, to keep people just smart enough to be able to feed their families, and yet not to have ambitions and not to create their own businesses, not to become entrepreneurial, not to become successful. I mean, all of this is well documented. It's so, so hugely important for every one of us to know, because this is how we are becoming parasite cleansed. And so instead of, like, remember when our schools taught our children about civics, like about our founding fathers under tyranny way back when? Does that sound at all familiar today? I mean, how is it possible that in the modern world, quote unquote modern world, that a Muslim immigrant, an illegal in England, and that they have gangs looking for the children of England and raping them, the rape gangs, I think they're even called. How can that be where the authorities are actually protecting those who are doing unspeakable acts of violence against the people, and then someone who resists that, who objects to it, who posts about it online, that person is arrested and given 18 years in prison, and yet these rape gangs are free because they're illegal aliens, invaders, and the government is protecting them. How is that even possible to imagine that being the reality of the world today? Because so many of us were weak, scared, broken, the wrecked people. This is the mass herd of wrecked people. And yet, how could we allow that? How is it even possible that any of this nonsense, this garbage, this totalitarian takeover attempt was even possible starting in March of 2020? That would have never had any, they would not have even attempted that. These evil forces, the parasites, the predators, the globalists, the Democratic National Communist Party, if we were strong. That could have only happened because they knew that we were under the manipulation, that we had become very weak as a people, that we were very distracted, divided, disconnected by the dumbing device. I mean, really hear all of this and post about all of this. So, like I said, go and post about every point in this pivotal conversation that every one of us must have. We must recognize this happening. So go back to the beginning if you haven't been doing this and reflect on each point and then share your thoughts on each point in all of your social media and use your freeingthematrix.com mastermind link. This is on the About page in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. It says invite people. Click on that invite people button and get your link and include your link in all of the posts you are making as we are all stepping up and stopping tyranny and saving humanity. We're liberating our human family right now, even through this Operation Greatness Action Pod number 48, exit the mass herd of wrecked people, because you are helping every one of your online friends transform their lives and become free and become that inspired visionary leader of all of their online friends. So they're liberating all of their online friends as you're liberating all of yours, and all of their online friends that are now free and that they have become parasite cleansed as well. All of that is the gift and contribution of your life. Like, for example, right here, by you making sure that 1,200 of your people are becoming parasite cleansed, are becoming free from the matrix. They're in our Freeing the Matrix mastermind with us, and they're doing that through your link. And then those 1,200 people getting their 1,200 people, those 1,440,000 people you transformed getting their 1,200 people, my friend, this is the higher purpose of your life, because those 1.72 billion people living free and thriving, that's completely dismantling the matrix. That's completely stopping the parasites from causing any more suffering and harm and pain and misery among our human family. We are so much better than what we had allowed ourselves to become. We became weak. We became, well, sick, dumb, broke, poisoned, all because of the programming, the manipulation. You know that I'm saying the absolute truth, and we have to be open about it. We can't hold back in fear. And also, by the way, we can't even talk about this openly on the channels that most people use. We have to be very careful about that because they are part of the mass programming. I mean, like, let's see, I haven't checked my Twitter for a while. Let's go there and see what that looks like now. Because even Elon Musk says he guarantees free speech, but not free reach. So people talking about this stuff, their posts are buried so no one sees them. That's not free speech. That's a false premise. That's a lie. That's a fraud. Anyway, like my 183,854 or 64 people, whatever that is, 54, I don't know. Right now, is that the current number? Let's just refresh that if I didn't. Just to I'm showing you this on the screen if you're watching the video, which you should be, because that means you're having so much more impact, leading your own Operation Greatness chapter among all your online friends. So my pinned post has had right now 4,161 views. That was from 14 hours ago. 4,100 out of the 183,800 and whatever, 654, 64, 54 people, 83,864 people asked to get my post, and my pin post has been seen by 4,100 and whatever that was. So if the oppression level were 99%, then 1,838 people would see that post. So that's about what, 3,600 and something would be 98% oppression level. So it's pretty close to 98% oppression level, 97.7 or 8% oppression level on my pin post. And yet, 44 minutes ago, I posted a video about today's podcast, and 94 people saw that. So 94 people, that's an easier math because 94 people out of 183,854, well, if it were 99.9% oppression level, then that would be 1 in 1,000, and that would be 184 people. So it was like about half of that. So I mean, that's really poignant and provocative and compelling and important for every one of us to see. So 94 people, that's like instead of 1 in 1,000, which would be 99.9% oppression level, that's like 1 in 2,000. That's like half of that. So what would that be? 99.95% oppression level? I don't know if that's the right math, but let's see, 1 hour ago I posted something and 149 saw that one. So that would be like still more than 99.9% oppression level. My point is that even on the quote free speech platform, there is no free speech. It's oppression. And so we have to go to our freeingthematrix.com mastermind to talk about all of this stuff. I mean, yes, you're sharing your link and you're leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating every one of your online friends. And yet, and you're using your invite people link, of course, in all of your posts. And yet you're leading people to become part of our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, where we are speaking freely about everything and where we're stepping up, owning our power, commanding our destiny, and we're stopping tyranny dead in its tracks. So, I mean, really hear this and post about all of this because this is the work every one of us is required now to do. I think that your parasite cleanse becoming parasite cleansed is mandatory for every one of us. This is the rite of passage that we don't even have anymore in our society, and yet we need it. It's vital, it's imperative for every one of us to become parasite cleansed. So make sure that you're joining us in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind and go to the classes link and give yourself this parasite cleansed coaching program. You're undoing, you're purging the programming from the parasites. That's what we're doing together. That's why this is mandatory for every one of us to do. So let's talk about exiting the mass herd of wrecked people. What does that mean and how important is that for every one of us to do? Okay, so this requires an understanding of how our brains work, our minds work. Maybe we should be more specific and clear here. So think of your subconscious mind as, I mean, you've seen the diagram of like the iceberg that is like 90 some percent below the surface, and then the top part is like 5%. Let's say, let's just look at those numbers. 5% is your subconscious mind, and I mean, your conscious mind is 5%, and 95% is your unconscious mind, right? Subconscious mind below the surface. That's what's running every one of us. And from that standpoint alone, it's easy to consider, I think, that 93 to 97% of our behavior is not our own, it's programmed because our subconscious mind is what is keeping us alive ultimately. That's what its job is. So really hear all of this. Are you with me so far in all this? If you have any questions, then, ask questions about this so it can be more clear in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, because this is the insight, the awareness that we all must have now. So, our subconscious mind's job is to keep us alive. So, it's always sorting, it's always scanning the environment looking for threats because think about this. I mean, we're still in survival mode. From remember the days back in, whatever, millions of years ago, I don't know how far back, when we had saber-toothed tigers out there and dinosaurs and, even birds that could, with 12-foot wings or whatever, I don't know how big they were, but, that could grab cows and, people and, I mean, there was predators all around, right? And so your defense system is still from those days. And like consciously, you think of yourself as being more refined and able to care for yourself, and that the world is not the same anymore, that, we're sedentary, most people are just on their computers now, and we're very passive and weak, and yet your conscious mind is still scanning for threats, but hear this message. Your conscious mind can only take in about 140 pieces of information in your environment every second. Like right now, I'm looking around and I mean, I can look outside and I can see Courthouse Butte and I can see beautiful trees. And I mean, most things I don't even notice consciously, but your subconscious mind is always picking up everything in your environment. Like instead of 140 things that you see consciously in your environment, your subconscious mind, let's just say that it can pick up from your five senses, your subconscious mind is aware of 1.1 million pieces of information every second. So, like 140 consciously and a 1.1 million unconsciously. And some people say it's up to billions of pieces of information. There's not a there's not an agreement on how many bits of data your subconscious mind is always processing. So this is where the predators, the parasites, had been manipulating us, keeping us in scarcity, fear, lack programming, all beneath our conscious awareness. This is what every one of us must recognize, be aware of, see, feel, know, protect ourselves from, and in fact become parasite cleansed, to purge ourselves of this non-supportive, damaging programming. Because the way you're built, the way your mind works, is that if the subconscious mind perceives a threat in the environment, it will take over the power from the conscious mind to run your life. And that's where we have been, well, for thousands of years, to be honest, because these systems of control by the predators, the parasites, the globalists is where it looks now, or the communists, evil is what it is. They had been keeping us down for thousands of years. I mean, one example is, to me, this is the most obvious example, is the Catholic Church, the Roman Empire and the Catholic Church being, the religion to get people to conform to the rule of the emperor, and where they sent armies of people to, quote, convert the pagans, the peasants, and if they didn't agree to worship the emperor, ultimately, then they were executed, right? I mean, so that's the most blatant example of the predators, the parasites, taking everything from everyone else. And I mean, okay, so let's talk about a real example here. I mean, to me, that's like what still is the operating system of our human race, that we are controlled by these parasites, by these systems of abuse and control and manipulation. So did you know how tea came into widespread use? This was back in 1610, and the royals saw that caffeine, or they knew they could see that caffeine subdues people, it pacifies them, they're more compliant, they become much weaker by caffeine use. So the royals introduced tea time to keep the masses happy and subdued and compliant and peaceful and programmable. And I mean, that's how they've been ruling people since, by, caffeine in tea, black tea, not herbal tea, which is caffeine free. It's okay to drink herbal tea. And until 1685, when they were in Arabia, the empire, the parasite control expanded to Arabia, and they found coffee, and wow, this has so much more caffeine than tea. I mean, like if tea was enough to control people, and I think black tea has like there's a range, but let's say 100 milligrams or micrograms, whatever, I think it's I don't know, MCG, I don't know, micrograms of caffeine, like 100, and tea, I mean, coffee might have 1,000 micrograms, whatever it is. It might be 10 times as strong as black tea. And then that became the drug of choice, the way to pacify people even more. And I mean, did you see the movie Fight Club? Did you know that Starbucks was actually failing before that movie came out? And look at almost every scene, and somebody is carrying a Starbucks cup, and it has the logo prominently featured in that movie. Anyway, I mean, all of this was intentionally designed. Did you know that the TV was a military weapon, or is a military weapon? And then what is the dumbing device is just a TV that's brought down to 3 inches, and you were programmed to carry that around with you and to become addicted to it. That's just kind of like TV and its manipulation, its programming on steroids. And then, I mean, anyway, I mean, you're aware of how much more disconnected, divided, disempowered, distracted all of us had become because of the dumbing device, the military weapon that was used to get people more compliant, to get them ready for Fraud 1.0, the attempted totalitarian takeover. This whole thing that we've been experiencing. And this is all part of the 2030 agenda, right? You've seen that before. I hope you're aware of that, awake to that. I mean, that's well documented everywhere. The World Economic Forum plan to completely control all aspects of every one of our lives by 2030. The famous quote from Epitome of Evil, Agent of Evil, Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. I mean, he's officially, anyway, I mean, we go into more of this in parasitecleanse.com in the programming there. Make sure that you're seeing that 24-minute video that I share with you about how becoming Parasite Cleanse myself was the second greatest thing that I've ever done. The epiphany that I had the first night that I was really involved with the questionnaire that we're all doing and becoming aware of how extensive the programming was and how much we were self-sabotaging ourselves as compliant little wrecked people in the mass herd of wrecked people, do that yourself at parasitecleanse.com. I'll be happy to share that with you there. It's very important to see how much more is possible for you and how extensive the programming was from the parasites. Anyhow, so going back to coffee, so the royals were so elated to see that we can manipulate people by getting them addicted to this toxic poison called coffee that has so much more of the poison in it than the tea does. And like tomorrow, by the way, I started to talk about this earlier too. I forgot about this. So today is action pod number 48, exit the mass herd of wrecked people. Tomorrow, just to give you a preview, is action pod number 49, and I'm showing you the logo for this in the video if you're doing that because you become an Operation Greatness chapter leader, leading your own chapter in your community as the inspired visionary leader of everyone in your local area, as well as all your online friends. Well, tomorrow is Action Pod number 49, which is entitled Implement the 30-Day Success Formula. This is where, like today, I'm doing my monk's fast, 36 hours of fasting, and today is my first day of becoming caffeine free. I've done it for some days, but I gave it up completely. Yesterday was my last day of having caffeine. I used to like to drink black tea in the morning, and today no more. I'm done with that because I only continued after I learned about how damaging caffeine was. I only continued drinking my black tea with caffeine because I had like a gallon of it and I had this much left in it. We'll talk about this tomorrow in our Operation Greatness Action Pod number 49. Implement the 30-day success formula. I'll tell you my story about that tomorrow. Anyway, you're going to want to be there for that. So make sure that you're following me on this podcast platform if you're hearing this, wherever you're hearing this, make sure you're subscribed and following me because this is important. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. And then the next day, we're doing Action Pod number 50, which we're going to explore, is it already too late for humanity? And the subtitle is, Yes, we allowed ourselves to become weak, poisoned, disconnected. It's time we rise. So make sure that you're hearing that one. So you have to subscribe to my podcast to get all of these. But let's go back to where we are today. Exit the mass herd of wrecked people. So this is very important for every one of us to recognize. So we talked about how when your subconscious mind feels like your conscious mind cannot protect you, is unsafe to rule you, then the subconscious mind takes over. Is there any question that we've been in that position where people are still in fight or flight mode from the Broad 1.0, the attempted totalitarian takeover that started after the parasites made sure that they knew that we were weak and compliant and passive and distracted, disconnected, divided, disempowered from the dumbing device for so many years and addicted to the screen and disconnected from real life and from our power and our purpose and each other and God. They made sure that we were primed by the abuse of the programming for long enough to be so weak that they could completely take over our lives and put this, that they practiced Operation, well, what was it called? It was called Event 201. That was the preparing for the whole lockdowns and Fraud 1.0, the attempted totalitarian takeover. They practiced that at least, well, it was sometime in 2019. I don't remember the exact date of it. maybe it was a little less than a full year before the lockdowns and all that began, before they released the bioweapon on the public. You know all of this, right? I mean, I hope you're intelligent and aware and awake enough out of the manipulation to see all of this and to not question any of it because they counted on silencing the oppression. You know that phrase, trust the science. And, then it's okay. So here's the deal. It's all about the repetitive content in the environment and controlling that. So the media, and think of, the company named Media Matters. Have you heard of that company called Media Matters? I was a journalist for 10 years myself in the newspaper business, and I was in radio for 3.5 years, and I did TV for about 1.5 years. So I've been in the media pretty extensively. I was a reporter, newspaper reporter for 6 years and assistant managing editor for 4 years. I used to come in and lay out the front page. I used to decide what would be our lead story for the day, and I would lay it out. I would put the headline on it, and I mean, that's what I did 5 days a week at the last newspaper where I was the assistant managing editor. But now, I mean, this was back when we still respected the intelligence of our audiences and we had integrity. And so, like, we would have to present both sides. We wanted to because it was fair and it was our job as the fourth, what did they call that now? The fourth, the three, they have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. And the fourth estate, thank you. See, it's been so programmed out of us, I even almost forgot that myself. Where the fourth estate, where the journalist, the media, has the responsibility to hold the other three branches accountable to make sure that they are still serving the people and honoring our freedom of speech, all of our rights that we have as free and independent sovereign people. And now this company, like, I think it's the CIA behind all of this, but I don't have documented evidence of that, so I cannot assert that as factual. I think it's the CIA, but anyway, there's a company called Media Matters, and this began, I don't know when this began, but I think it became mandatory and enforced during the attempted totalitarian takeover after Fraud 1.0 was unleashed on the world. And but anyway, this company called Media Matters is one of the largest. And I heard this in an interview on Nicole Shanahan's podcast. She ran with Bobby Kennedy as his candidate as his vice president under his administration. And I mean, she's an outspoken person. I really like her because, I mean, she was a Democrat. They were both Democrats until they saw the level of oppression and manipulation and how unfairly they were all treated by the Democratic National Communist Party and the mainstream media. I mean, Communist Joe Biden wasn't even giving him Secret Service protection. And I mean, how irresponsible is that? How much a betrayal of office and dereliction of duty is that? Well, anyway, Nicole Shanahan was interviewing a gentleman, I do not remember his name right now, David something, I think, but I don't know. Anyway, he had worked for, let's see if I can remember this. I think 22 years at the Hollywood Reporter and 10 years at Newsweek. I'm not sure if that was exactly right. It was like 30 or 32 years, I think, in total. I believe I have that right. Anyway, I saw that he was a real journalist because I was a journalist myself for so long, and I recognized that consciousness, and he was somebody who wanted to present the truth. And yet then he ultimately got fired from both places. And he worked at Newsweek for 10 years, I think it was. Maybe it was 8 years. And anyway, he got fired from there ultimately because he wasn't portraying President Trump the way they ordered him to. I mean, this company, he exposed this company called Media Matters. At least that's where I heard about it from him. And he said that they would email like maybe once a week and say, okay, here's how we're going to play President Trump. Here's how we're going to play Elon Musk. Here's how we're going to portray whatever issue of the day was, like the hurricane in North Carolina and the hurricane in Florida. And we're not going to talk about this. We're going to only highlight this. And I mean, like he said point blank. So he was a reporter for Newsweek, and he said that 90% of the stories in Newsweek could have the same headline, Trump is evil. I mean, notice that's the narrative of the day. That was part of the programming. And remember, your subconscious mind is always seeing, hearing, scanning the environment for threats, and it's picking up 1 million bits of information per second, maybe more than that, might be billions. And it's looking for the repetitive themes in the environment because it wants you to feel safe. And especially when you're programmed, manipulated to have your conscious mind in the background, not in power, not in control, and the repetitive mind, the repetitive programming, excuse me, is President Trump is evil, Trump is a dictator, Trump is Nazi, he's the next Hitler, when that is what the media is barraging you with that message repeatedly over and 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 over 10,000 times more over, that's what people hear, and consciously they might just kind of reject it. Oh yeah, you're the mainstream media, you're corrupt, you're a fraud, you're a hypocrite, you're evil, and how could anybody support that? How could anybody subject themselves to it? And yet, even when you walk down the street, like I'm thinking of Times Square in New York with all the billboards and the ads and the feeds of information, I mean, that's programming. Everyone's seeing that in New York. And yet, like when you go in an airport and that's part of the programming, right? When you see CNN, the Communist News Network, on all these TV sets, and they're just doing their programming. And this guy that I mentioned from Newsweek, who talked about this Media Matters, I mean, they would actually, like, if people did not comply with their mandates, their edicts, then the Media Matters companies, he said that was like one of about four companies, major ones, they would contact the advertisers of that media outlet and say, these guys are radical, they've become extreme right wing, stop advertising with them. And then they would coerce the advertisers to withdraw their money. So the media companies, they felt they needed to comply with the authoritarian mandates of the parasites of evil, of the globalists, of the communists. Otherwise, they would go out of business. That's how serious this company like Media Matters was. So all of the editorial board, the producers, the leaders of these media, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, websites, they had to comply, and they were all on board because they were themselves manipulated and programmed by the repetitive content of evil, of the parasites, the predators, the globalists, the communists. And so they were firing any of the reporters who were more like think for themselves, more remaining independent. I mean, that's how serious the manipulation is still out there. And I mean, you recognize that, right? I mean, I hope you support none of them. I hope you feed yourself none of that programming because that's how we became so weak, so fast, so sick, so poisoned because of that takeover by the parasites. So the way it works is, I mean, this is why every one of us must become parasite cleansed. I mean, I'm sincere about that. I believe that's mandatory, required of every one of us to become parasite cleansed because your subconscious mind is picking up these messages of disempowerment, of division, distraction, disempowerment, disconnection, despair, discombobulation from the environment. So we have to undo the programming. We have to purge ourselves from that programming for scarcity, fear, lack consciousness, because that's the matrix and that's how pervasive it is that kept people weak, compliant, under control in scarcity, fear, lack consciousness. And this is our time to rise, to not comply, to stop this oppression, and to remove the parasites from any positions of power and control and abuse and authority. Is there any question about how important this is, how this is required of every one of us, especially to become parasite cleansed, to become free of it? Because the truth is, we are so powerful and we're here to be of service to each other, not to bash each other down and shame anyone. No, we're here to inspire. You are here to lead, inspire, transform, and liberate every one of your online friends, everyone in your family, all your friends in life, in your community. I mean, seriously, lead your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community. That would be by far your greatest contribution to everyone in your community. Become parasite cleansed and then lead every one of your online friends through becoming parasite cleansed as well. And we're doing both of those things through the freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So let's get back to this phrase, this our title of today's Operation Greatness Action Pod number 48, exit the mass herd of wrecked people. So the masses have become weak, broke, sick, dumbed down. I don't like to say stupid or dumb because I mean, we have so much more potential than we will ever even recognize or achieve. We're all meant for greatness. We're all meant for so much more. We're all so much more powerful than we can ever even imagine or comprehend. And yet, this is the big herd. And remember that your subconscious mind is always scanning the horizon. It's taking in everything in your environment and it's looking for threats. It's looking for danger. And I mean, think about this. Like right now, our freeingthematrix.com mastermind is our place of success. It's our place of freedom. It's our place of happiness. It's our place of meaning and fulfillment and contribution and prosperity and abundance and fulfillment. Maybe I said fulfillment already. And yet, if that looks like to your subconscious mind that's looking for your survival, it doesn't care about your happiness or your well being or your wealth. If you're miserable and you're suffering, at least you're still alive. And its only function is to keep you alive. I mean, that's really important for you to hear that message. And that's why it's really important for you to stay in your conscious mind where you are in command of your destiny. That's the only place you will thrive is when you consciously are at the controls, at the helm of your ship, where you're choosing your own course and you're leading yourself and you're owning your power, which is beyond measure. That's the only way that you will be successful, happy, thriving, abundant, living your fulfilled life. And that requires you to become parasite cleansed for you to be back in command of your life. Because your subconscious mind, I mean, think about that. The herd of wrecked people, the masses, that feels like the safer environment to your subconscious mind because then you're like everyone else. Then you're not standing out. Then you're safe. Then no one will shame you for being successful, for steering your own course, for pointing out by contrast, and you're not going to shame anyone else. You're leading them, you're showing them, hey, evil was in command of most of the systems in our lives, and we have to become free of that to have happiness and joy and fulfillment and well-being and peace of mind and prosperity and success to take care of our families. We have to break free from these systems of oppression in our lives, and that system of oppression is almost totalitarian, it's almost total. And we have to protect ourselves before it becomes total, absolute, authoritarian, totalitarian command of all areas of our lives. We have to stop that from happening. We have to wake up now. I mean, like today. I mean, like, make sure you're joining us in the freeingthematrix.com mastermind today. There's no question about that in my mind. Do you have any questions about how urgent this is for you to do? How imperative and required this is, and critical and vital for every one of us to do? Or how required and needed it is for every one of us to become parasite cleansed right now through, I mean, you can start with parasitecleanse.com, but this is through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. Anyway, so because your subconscious mind is thinking, I don't know, that looks scary to me to separate myself from the wrecked herd, the mass herd of wrecked people. That sounds scary to me. That's unknown territory. I don't know if I can protect you there. When I'm playing small, when I'm weak, when I'm helpless, when I'm in debt over my head, when I'm poisoning myself so that I can barely get out of bed in the morning, I'm subdued. I'm continuing to smoke all the marijuana, to take all the drugs, to drink all the alcohol. So I'm numb. At least then I know that I'm safe from the mass herd of wrecked people. I'm not a threat to them. Whereas otherwise, when you start thriving, I mean, other people are seeing, wow, I should have done that myself. I could have done that. I'm such a miserable failure. I hate myself. I loathe the person I had become. That you, as a successful person living the life, looks like a threat to them. Instead, I mean, you're not a threat because you're just showing them how much more is possible and the work that we all need to do to get back to harmony, balance, the lives we are meant to live. I mean, how do you respond to that when you hear me say those words? Does that look scary for you to make something of yourself when everyone else is miserable and painfully suffering, and when they're sick and broke and they're not even, I mean, how pervasive is depression now today? I mean, like Bobby Kennedy, I don't know if I can remember the exact number. He talks about how back when he was a kid, almost no one ate fast food or junk food, and almost no one had cancer, and it was almost unheard of to have autism. And now I think I've heard him say it's like 1 in 34 kids have autism these days, and how common depression is now. I mean, how many people are treated for mental illness now? Is it like 1 in 10 or 1 in 4? I don't know. It's like That's how weak we became. That's how irresponsible we as parents became to our children. That's how unthinkable the world had become under our watch. And I mean, what's your prime directive? Answer that question, especially, I mean, on all your social media and especially in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. What is your prime directive as a human, as a parent, as an American, as a citizen in the world, as a human member of our human family, our human tribe? What is your prime directive? What do you think? Yes, it's to raise kids who know how to thrive themselves and become responsible, contributing members of society. And it's to live your life in such a way that you are an example for your children of how much more is possible for themselves. It's to be the caretaker for our planet. We know that. Every one of us knows that because that is why we are here. Except now, think about this. The parasites had been causing massive suffering, keeping people down, keeping them barely alive, barely able to provide for their families for thousands of years. They've been feeding off of us for thousands of years, our life force, our love, our hope, our dreams. We, all of us on the planet today, we came into these bodies for this moment where we said no more, where we said, no, you are out of line. We do not accept you parasites feeding off of us. I'm saying no. I'm pulling myself. I'm freeing the matrix from my mind. I'm freeing my children from your perversion, from your evil. I'm becoming parasite cleansed myself, and I'm making sure that my children are parasite cleansed themselves. This is the end of your reign, your rule, your oppression over us. We are standing in our power. We are sovereign. We are free. This is our duty, our destiny. No more. And you are that example, that inspired visionary leader of everyone you can reach. You're doing that through Operation Greatness in your community, leading your own chapter. You're doing that in Operation Greatness, leading all of your online friends through joining your chapter and leading their own chapters. You're doing that yourself, becoming parasite cleansed, and you're leading every one of your online friends through becoming parasite cleansed themselves. And everyone in your Operation Greatness chapter is becoming parasite cleansed themselves as well. And all of us are doing this through our Freeing the Matrix mastermind. That is why every one of us is here now. That is how all of us are together creating that. This is humanity's unifying manifestation. So remember, I said your power is beyond measure. You are so much greater than you will ever even know or comprehend or could ever even imagine. Now, right now, remember when I talked about how the warmth of the sun on my arm feels warm, it feels nice, it's soothing, and yet when we focus that to a single beam and when we concentrate that beam, I think you can incinerate steel with that because it's so strong, so powerful. You are even more powerful than the warmth of that single, than the power of that single concentrated beam of sun. You are more powerful than 10,000 suns, my friend. Your power is beyond measure. There's no limit to how powerful you are. So right now, focus your power and create this humanity's unifying manifestation. See this in your mind. Hear these words in your mind and see this as the result of you living your inspired life, honoring your divine design, duty, destiny, dharma. This is your higher purpose. It's why you're here on the planet. It's how you are living and being God's gift to the world, which you absolutely are. You are God's gift to the world, my friend. So see this happening. This is where you're focusing and concentrating your power and creating this result. All of us together are living this. We're making it happen. This is why every one of us is here on the planet to live this. So join us in humanity's unifying manifestation now. Our power is beyond measure. Together, we've helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy, living their Dharma through freeingthematrix.com and Operation Greatness. This is the greatest thing we've ever done and the higher purpose of our lives. See that as complete. Feel that as your greatest contribution to the world. You have liberated everyone in our human family by you doing this yourself and doing this with and for everyone connected with you. All your online friends is everyone in your local area. You are the inspired visionary leader. You are God's greatest gift to the world. That is your destiny. That is your purpose. That is your duty. That is your responsibility. Is there any question about that? This is why you are here on the planet. This is your reason for being. So be that inspired visionary leader. So make sure that you have shared all of the posts about all of your feelings about each of the points that we've been talking about since the beginning of this Operation Greatness podcast. This is Action Pod number 48. Exit the mass herd of wrecked people. All of us are coming back from being wrecked, from being poisoned, from being sick, from being weak, from being broke, from being in misery to thriving. We're all here to thrive. Exit the mass herd of wrecked people, join us in the freeingthematrix.com mastermind, and lead all of the wrecked people into thriving as much as you are thriving, where you are holding yourself as the example of what's possible for every one of us. And you're not saying you're wrong, look at what you did to yourself. No, you're saying we're here for so much more. Join me in becoming more. So you're holding out a hand and you're pulling them out of the matrix of fear, doubt, worry, scarcity, lack, and you're leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating them, doing a little more today in being of greater service. This is why you are here. This is the gift you are. So you're making sure that you're getting your 1,200 people joining us through your invite people link in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, and that your 1,200 are getting their 1,200 and becoming 1,440,000 people who are getting their 1,200 and becoming 1.72 billion people. This is your power. This is your potential. This is your purpose. This is how much you matter because you liberated humanity. That's the gift of your life. That's the contribution that you have made. That's so much more that you have always known was there for you, that you always knew that you were here for something big, something huge, something really important. This is it. Is there any question about that? So do that right now. Get your invite people link by becoming part of our freeingthematrix.com mastermind if you're not already there. Get your link and add your link to all the posts that you have made about each point since the beginning of this Operation Greatness Pod, Action Pod number 48. This is how you have exited the mass herd of people and you've led the wrecked people into no longer wrecking their lives, to come out of and become parasite cleansed to come out of the matrix, out of the programming. And all of us have dismantled it together by ending the toxins in our lives. Remember to stay tuned for tomorrow when we're doing Action Pod number 49. Implement the 30-day success formula. Give up all the poison and you'll naturally thrive. We're doing this together. So make sure that you're joining us for that. So talk about all this in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. Take all the posts that you've been making. Have you made about 124 posts right now? 150 posts at least, 148 probably. Maybe you're at 196 because this is just unleashing all of this toxic waste within you. You're letting it go already right here. You're becoming parasite cleansed even through your thoughts, your recognition, your awareness of everything that you had taken in unconsciously, and now you're purging yourself and you're already going through this purging process. And I mentioned this is day one of me not having any caffeine, not having any processed foods, not having any sugar, because that's toxic. How could I love myself and do something that's toxic, that's poisonous to me? That would be contradictory. That would be unloving. That would be harming myself. How could I be toxic to myself? Anyway, make sure that you're taking all the posts and that you're sharing it with all of us in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, and then take all the posts as well and put them into the essay, as always, that you're sending me at dan@danclatt.com. What was most meaningful for you in this action pod number 48, Exit the Mass Herd of Wrecked People? How much more do you know you matter? How much more do you know, do you see, do you recognize that this is the higher purpose of your life? That you have the power to transform our whole human family, that you are God's gift to the world. How much more are you owning that? Now you're living that, right? So what is the impact of knowing that? This is the turning point of your life because this is the turning point of humanity. This is the monumental turning point in human history. And my friend, that's because of you doing this yourself and doing this with and for every one of your online friends, as well as everyone in your local community through your Operation Greatness chapter. Is there any question about any of this? So send me that link and send me all the posts that you made, Dan, at danclatt.com. And make sure that you're joining us in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind if you haven't yet joined that. I'm so inspired by the person you are today, right now, because you've already started to do massive purging of all the toxic beliefs and programs that you had allowed to control you. Now, I think we're more like on that. Well, let me ask you this. Where are you? If before, now you see that it was on the high end of that probably for you. 93 to 97% of your actions were not your own. They were manipulated and programmed into you. Now, is it more like down to 93% or is it down to 90% or is it now you're in command and you're leading the way and you stepped into your power. You're not letting your subconscious mind run you anymore because you're here to thrive. You are here to lead, to inspire, to transform, to liberate everyone you can, every one of us in our human family, because you're recognizing your power. You're so much more. You're stepping into it, you're owning it, you're embracing it, and you're in complete control now. So, the programming, you're removing the toxins, so you're no longer holding yourself back. You're no longer poisoning yourself anymore, right? So, you're so much more awake and aware, and you're seeing the manipulation, and you're saying no to it. You're rejecting it. You're blocking it. You're preventing it. And you're the example of what's possible for every one of us. And you're inviting every one of us to join you in your success. And you're celebrating the success of every one of us. This is how we are here to live. And you know that, you see that, you recognize, and you're doing that. I'm so inspired by how much more bright you are. You're shining your light more brightly now, dispelling the darkness everywhere it still was. You're no longer food for the parasites. And you're not letting anyone close to you, anyone who matters to you, and every one of us matters to all of us now because we're serving and supporting each other. You're dismantling this system of oppression and abuse and control by all of us thriving and using our power and inviting everyone we can to use their power and to step in and own their power and be that inspired visionary leader of everyone they are blessed to serve themselves. Send me that essay, Dan at danclatt.com. Share that with us in the freeingthematrix.com mastermind. Look at the posts, and you can use them as well, that every one of us are sharing from this Action Pod number 48. This is how we have all exited the mass herd of wrecked people. And we are thriving and we're shining our light, and we've come back together as our human family, all of us coming from love, prosperity, abundance, generosity, being of greater service, all thanks to you doing this with all of the people you are blessed to have connected with you and for yourself. All of us coming back and being our best and bringing everyone else to being their best as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I believe in you. I know how much you matter. I see that within you. I experience you that way because this is your higher purpose, and now you know that and you're living that. Thank you very much.